Joining me now is the film's writer and director, David O. Russell, as well as three men in Joy's life, Robert De Niro, Bradley Cooper, and Edgar Ramirez. I am pleased to have all of them here. Congratulations to each of you.
Thanks for having us here.
You say this film is inspired by brave women. I assume Joy is one of those, a real-life person.
Yes, Joy, we never name her last name in the movie, but Joy Mangano is responsible for at least 50% of the detail in the picture. And
others inspired by brave women.
Daring women, yes, yes.
I mean, is this the first time we've seen this kind of film in which, as you suggested, as you sat down, a strong woman and a group of strong men behind her?
Yes. That was a film I did not feel I had ever seen. Where a woman had to make of herself, really become fierce and create something, and the men who could be strong enough to be behind the strong woman and love her, and she becomes kind of, to me, it's like the godmother. She's forgiving, she's patient, but she's tough. You can't be successful unless you're tough, but she's still got a gigantic heart. So to me, I had not seen that. They're the best divorced couple. That was. There's not a romance at the center of it.
He's Tom Jones, after all.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Yeah, but it's also about family.
It's very much about family. All
your films are about family.
It's The Fighter, Silver Linings, American Hustle. Family is very important, and I feel very privileged to work with Robert, who feels like the godfather over all of our pictures. He inspires everyone on the set to be privileged to working there with him, and we all learn from him, and I'm sorry to tell it to you, but it's the truth. And Bradley is also a co-collaborator and filmmaker, and Edgar's new to our team.
Yeah, but you like the idea of an ensemble.
I like, William Wyler worked with Bette Davis, Robert worked with Scorsese so much, I think, and Bradley and I have now worked together, and Jennifer. I think there's a comfort and a trust that you have with other artists, and you take chances together, and you'll do anything for each other.
Do you see this often?
Well, you see it a lot. I mean, Marty, Scorsese, Cassavetes, many European directors, Ingmar Bergman, Fellini, Antonioni. The list goes on and on. It seems that the better directors, or more than better directors, the finer directors have that understanding. Also, I think in the theater the same thing, but in movies. That seems to be a good thing.
In your own words, what is it? What's it?
What is
the common denominator among those directors?
That they feel more comfortable working with the people they've worked with before, because they know how they think, how they behave, and they know their patterns, and they probably know, they can see them in another part. I know if I was in David's situation, I'd be excited by saying, well, I have so-and-so, and I want to see them do this. And I know them, and I know they can do it. It'll be in a way which we haven't seen before, but that's all the better. So, and that he's great at.
It's really true with you and Marty, isn't it?
Yeah, we've had a terrific relationship over the years.
You're new to this.
Yeah.
How was it for you to come into this sort of
it was a huge privilege.
family?
Yeah, it's always a beautiful thing to be welcomed into a family, and especially such a creative and protective family as they are. It's beautiful. It's a huge privilege, especially because it's great to have a seat at such a great table. And I'm saying that David has created a universe that is unique, is surprising, is funny and heartbreaking. It's like life itself. So he's sensitive enough to capture all these contradictions and put them all together in his films and make them work in a seamless way. And that is something that we don't see very often. And just a handful of people are able to do that.
What's the story we're telling here?
It's really a story, like David said, we've never seen really before. It's a female empowerment movie. It's a movie about not hiding your dreams, not cashing them away for 17 years, but if they're there, take them. It's about overcoming obstacles, even family ones. And it's about doing what needs to be done in order to fulfill one's potential.
Yeah, a George of self-discovery for her.
Yes, I've watched Jennifer grow up since we first met her on Silver Linings Playbook. She walked on as a 20-year-old girl who was not famous. She asked these two what it was like to be famous. Hunger Games had not come out yet. Yeah. And I've watched her have to deal with an enormous amount of attention and all sorts of things, and remain true to herself and find her voice of power and dignity. I watched her buy her own house for the first time and unpack her boxes, and I've seen her learn to conduct herself and protect herself, and while still being true to herself. That takes a certain power, and she made herself starting at 14. So, to me, in the way the movie's about Jennifer as well.
In the sense of her own, the narrative is her narrative as well. Discovering yourself.
To me, I felt that.
Self-invention as well.
Yes, and we would never just want to do a biopic. It's about maturity and power. What is success? People think it looks like a cake on the outside. Well, what really is inside of it is
a struggle.
It's an enormous struggle that never ends and is filled with heartbreak. So what is the emotion joy? I ask that question as a filmmaker. I have to make sure there's enough for me to come to my collaborators and say, this is worthy of your time. It's worthy of you. Jennifer, she says, I'll do it if you do it. I say, we'll do it if we can do these ambitions. The emotion joy when you're a child. My first film that does a lifetime from 10 years old to 45 years old. When you're a child playing in the snow, making creations in your room, that's a particular innocent joy. When you get married, that's a euphoric joy, and Robert's there at the euphoria of the wedding, which is also. He's right. He gives a disastrous wedding toast. There's a history of famous disastrous wedding toasts that have been friendship-ending toasts I've heard about. He gives a doozy, but it turns out that he's right. But he's right. The thing is, you could say what a bad guy, but he's right about the marriage. He's a great, beautiful guy. But what's going to happen when you marry a Latino singer who wants to be Tom Jones? Is he going to bring home the bacon? Is he going to bring home the bacon? I don't know. But he's a loving guy. But anyway, but then what happens when you get divorced, Charlie, and you got 2 kids? You got him living in the basement, which is based on truth. He lives in the basement. He's a romantic.
A little divide between them.
He's a romantic. We had the odd couple in the basement. Then they hate each other. And what is joy at that moment of your life where you feel like you've lost your? How do you find inspiration again? How do you define a mature joy? And for me, it was in the end when she found power and she tolerated and forgave him. We met the real father who had sued her. That's what happens in family commerce. And she forgave him. She had a big heart. And that, to me, is what is inspiring.
And so where does Bradley fit in all this?
Each of these men Bradley's described the picture as being like the Odyssey. She begins in Robert's world. She's defined by the world of her father's metal garage. He built the bus routes of eastern Long Island, and it could be Wisconsin in 1960. It's snowy, it's a metal garage. And his pioneering vision is ending when the movie begins. His business is contracting. This man becomes her dream for a moment, teaches her to sing. She speaks Spanish. I wanted to see Jennifer speak Spanish. I wanted to see her sing. That's exciting to me as a filmmaker. It's exciting to play with time, to tell the story out of time. You see the divorcee, then you see the romance that preceded it. By the time she gets to him, it's the Emerald City. And I loved making a small cable station in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, MGM of 1950, that he treated with great sincerity and vision, and he took a chance on her. And that also was not easy to have happen. It almost failed many times.
She comes in, and the first impression, you take her on.
Right.
You give her a shot on QVC, the equivalent of QVC.
Right.
What did you see in her?
I think he was very practical, and it was a great invention.
Yeah.
You know, he understood
that.
Yeah, when he watched it at work, I mean, think about it. It was kind of a home run, what she did, the Miracle Mop. And he just took the time to actually watch her properly demonstrated for him. But we also talked about the fact that this is a guy who had a chance. I mean, Barry Diller gave him a chance. Right. You could tell that he doesn't look like these other people in the room. He's a little bit disheveled. You know, he comes from Detroit. He has a sports background. We started on his sport ring. You know, so he's probably very familiar with the idea of somebody giving somebody an opportunity. And as we've all experienced, as I've experienced in this room with you and with you, you know, people taking a chance with me and with you, quite frankly, the first time I came on the show.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, she found a like-minded person halfway through the movie. Thank God, like we all have. And she's, you know, he opened the door, he cracked it open for her, and then she barreled through it and never looked back.
At this stage, do you prepare a lot?
With David, it's
Robert,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
This he directs in such a way that it's all distilled through him. I always say that David, to me, writes for the camera, and so that he'll throw us lines and things like that. But and this family the dynamic is so complex, like any family. It has to be distilled through him, and he directs it in the way that he wants and in the direction that it should go. So we follow him. And I mean, like it's Rashomon. If you asked Rudy, the guy I played, what he thought, he'd say, "Well, that's not me," maybe, or he'd say that I didn't do it, or whatever. But you have to make a choice and move forward.
If the real father watched this film, he would say that.
I don't know if he'd say that.
But
I wouldn't be
you can
surprised if he'd say that. Maybe he'd be happy. I don't know. I heard Joy was happy. Joy, the real, actual Joy Mangano. But that's why David is so great, and we rely on him to steer us in the direction he wants to go. Because we know whatever it is, it'll be unique.
Let me say something about him. I always have to make it fresh and new for him. He became a man since I met him. He made a movie with Clint Eastwood. His boyishness is gone since Silver Linings.
I agree.
Okay, he comes out, he plays a guy who's like the men my father worked with as a salesman, a man putting bread on the table in those jackets, those houndstooth jackets my father's friends wore. He's not fooling around. It ain't a joke. Could be a mop, could be stock. You're selling it. This guy comes on, he's meticulous, and he teaches everybody to be meticulous. He's never too big to be the artist that he is. There was one particular day that
We're talking about the actor now.
Robert De Niro, who was also, I've watched, be the leader of a growing business as a businessman, a very smart businessman who I had learned from and just watch in going back 30 or more years, believing in real estate in unexpected neighborhoods and building exciting restaurants or hotels and involving his family, which is a balancing act that is worthy to me of parts of the great cinema about family businesses. The Godfather, you have to watch people relate and control the relationships. I just want to tell one story about your meticulousness.
Yes,
There's a day on the set where he comes in, and this is when Jennifer just is having nightmares, being haunted by her childhood, who had dreams. And the child is saying to her in her nightmares, and it was my first film where we did dreams, saying, "What happened to you? Where are you? You've been buried. It can happen in the world of adult concerns. You can get lost. What happened to your magic? Wake up." In that scene where he's about to give her cough syrup to help her go to sleep, I said, "Robert, don't you think this guy, we should see a little glimpse of a chain in there? Doesn't he feel like that guy who would have a chain?" It's inside his button-down shirt. He's meticulous. And his character is romantic, runs a metal garage, but dresses up in polo. That's who he is. That's who the real guy was. He goes, "Yeah, I think the chain is right." Vinny, our amazing prop master from Staten Island, says, "It's going to take 10 minutes to go to the truck." Somebody says, "Well, maybe we should just shoot a few, and let's just go." And from behind around the corner, I hear the voice, roll camera, action, pause. "Wait a minute. Let's not just go. I want the chain. Please get the chain." Mm-hmm. And I just felt everything on the set just go in total respect, because he's right. And he wanted the time, the 10 minutes, to get the little chain. And you see it when he's leaning over to her.
Details.
It's a detail. I only make movies about specific people that I can love and see in their contradictions. That's a specific thing. The chain you had in Silver Linings was the same thing.
So why do you think you're that way?
Well, he's being whatever. No, it's,
come on, Robert. You know it's truth. So talk about what you do.
No, sometimes I'm very particular, very specific, and other times I don't waste time on things that I know. I prepare that I'm in there, and I just do it for better or for worse, and it might turn out totally different than the way I anticipated or expected it to happen. That happens, and I just don't want to be afraid to move forward in something. We just got to say, I'm going to go do it, and I don't, whether it's right or wrong, it's a choice I made, and that's it. And that to me is more important because it has a spontaneity as the stuff that David does, and an aliveness, if there's such a word, that is essential to a movie working and living and breathing the way he does it. So I'm sort of answering the question.
Can I tell another story? So first time I worked with Bob was Limitless. And I think one of the reasons he's one of the best is, if not the best, is the marriage of the cerebral and the instinctual as an actor that I watched and I observed in the 4 movies we've done together. But I never forget, Bob, we're doing a scene where I come into the office and he starts at the window and he walks over and sits at the desk. And he's going to have to look at a paper, and his glasses are at the desk. And the prop guy, just folded the glasses, put them on the desk. And right before action, he said, "Wait a second," went over to the desk, unfolded them, put them on, and then put them down. Because that's what would have happened.
That's where he would have put them.
I remember I was like, whoa. And then he walked over. So then when he walked over, of course, that's where he always puts the glasses down when he gets up and walks around his office. And I thought, oh yeah, those little things. That's what you got to always remember, to make it just real. And and it's that kind of stuff in spades all over the place when you're working with them.
Can you teach this, or is it something you have to learn on your own?
I don't know.
Well, those are the things, because it's you have to, like, you go on a set and you got to open a door and do certain things. You got to take a piece of machinery and do something. It's very important to know how to do that. That little task, you better know, because it's something that you've been doing for a long time every day. So that you just got to make sure. I mean, what does also happen is when you're doing the scene over and over again, it's like a rehearsal, and you get to do it very easily the way you should. But you really should know that before, too. Those kind of small things. I can look at somebody and see somebody, they're opening a door. You could tell they never opened that door before, an actor, and they're supposed to be. And sometimes you don't want to do it, but you have to try and have all that stuff down, because the person would. And those little details people notice, and they might not even know why it doesn't register.
Right.
The thing that bothers me about sets is that the doors are always very hollow and the floors are hollow and everything. And I wish there was a way that it doesn't feel real.
We did shoot in a real
Unless you're on
house.
location.
Yeah, so that's different. We shot in a real location.
Yeah. Okay, take a look at this. This is the first clip. This is when you returned to live with your daughter and her mother. Here it is.
Black Lagoon.
It's just great.
I mean, that's the music. I love the music of language. I mean, I write the script many times beforehand, and Robert asked to memorize the dialogue days in advance, because he wants to make sure he memorizes it very often, even if we change it. So I love the music of family and talking, and the music of language. Having said that, this woman is the people where we're from makes us who we are. The people we love, where we're from, well, that's who we are. And staying true to that has made me the better filmmaker that I can be. You must be rooted in who you loved, who you struggled with. She's rooted in this house with these people. And those people become the impediments, like in a fairy tale, who challenge you but also enable you to become who you're meant to be. But you have to rise to meet it. You have to rise to challenge them and fight them when you need to. Without him, the whole endeavor doesn't happen. Without his Italian girlfriend.
Take a look at Isabella Rossellini.
Yes.
Let's go back to another clip. This is where Joy met Tony, Edgar's character. Here it is. Was there much direction in that scene? Directing?
Yes, always. Oh yeah. But that's David is always there with you, always, and that's great. I think that we've been discussing this. That in a way, it releases you from so many ideas and self-inflicted pressure that you could have in your head, because you have your director there with you.
It releases you to take risk, or releases you
No, because the thing is that normally, I mean, we actors tend to be very heady and be in our heads, because we want to
The
meet.
answer is yes to his question.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah. But the thing is that it's a privilege to have a director who knows exactly what your character is thinking, and who's so sensitive that even knows what you're thinking about the character right there. Because it's very. I mean, his things are so sharp. I mean, he's one of the most sensitive persons I've ever met.
This man was mostly known for playing really intense guys, like in Carlos, which is a portrait.
the Jackal.
Which is a portrait of a very famous terrorist. He's a very beautiful guy. I think this is the most vulnerable we've ever seen you. So you have that mug that could look so angry, and when you're arguing with Robert or somebody, I'd say just back off it. If you just look at him, it's like. Yeah. And what was it like for you to sing with Jennifer in the snow and in that hallway?
It was beautiful. I mean, I've never tapped into that emotional territory before, and it was beautiful. I remember when the snow started to come down, because I didn't know that the snow was going to come down. Actually, we were supposed to. I remember actually shoot another song, and then David, he trusted his instincts, and then he said, "No, we should sing this one."
Something stupid.
And then I knew the song, but Jennifer didn't know the song. She didn't know the lyrics. And there's a line that David had already written when we're coming on stage. Yeah. When she asked me, "But what if I don't know the words?" And I say to her, "Don't worry, you will." And that actually applied to the reality of the situation, because she didn't know the words, so she was even more vulnerable and more open, and it was beautiful, you know. I mean, we were dancing and singing for a number of takes, and it was very emotional for all of us, even for people from the crew. It was beautiful. I remember when we finished that scene in the hallway, Jennifer was very sick that day, so she was very vulnerable, and I remember that when we finished, I came. You were in the stairs. You were behind. You know, it was a little pocket where David hid while we were shooting, and then I thank you for letting me fall in love in that way on cinema, because those are things that really changes you. You know.
What's the soap opera?
As a storyteller, I said, what is the psyche of a 10-year-old girl who becomes a 45-year-old woman? Let's tell her story. She's got a metal garage where welding and trucks are being fixed. That's in her. I said that you are where you come from. Her mother is a timid person who was taken refuge in her bedroom and watches soap operas and takes inspiration from strong women on soap operas. We got some icons of soap: Susan Lucci, Laura Wright, Donna Mills, Morris Bernard. To me, that was a great opportunity to make a statement that in the first half of the movie, Jennifer's character is sort of trapped in a soap opera that her family's living. She's defined by their world, and it's almost she can't get out. We shot them in 1969, 1979, 1989 to do it through each era. And to me, it resonates for many levels. I think Russian literature is like soap opera. I think the story of this family struggling is like a soap opera to begin with, but it's a beautiful.
So what becomes the dynamic of the relationship then?
Between she and everyone else?
She and her father.
Well, for the first half of the movie, she's talking to all these men across their desks. She's in their spaces. She's in his garage, in his office, in his space, in his space. The second part of the movie, they're talking to her across her space.
When she has a mop.
And then she has her own desk at the end. She's become the authority. And that was a very powerful story for me, for girls and women to see, but also for men to see that they could be strong enough to be part of that. The man wanted her help her. He did not intend to block her. If you start a business at a kitchen table, Charlie, which I've watched many little endeavors start at kitchen tables in my family's home and others, you're going to get an attorney. They know the best, and they helped her. He did everything he could with his girlfriend Isabella Rossellini to finance it, and then wakes up and they were wrong. The patent was set up wrong. If you make anything worth anything, people will try to take it from you every step of the way. It's relentless in business. You have to become very cunning.
Are you also telling the story of family, telling the story of a strong woman, but also telling a story about entrepreneurship and the way business works and the values of business and the corruption of business, or
not the corruption of business? I think
there's some of that here.
Well, to me, what that means is if you're talking about ethics, I think business has always been a no holds barred kind of a thing, and it's happened to my father. If you want to make anything, my father published books. You have a middleman. All of a sudden, the middleman has a lot of power. If they're printing your book or they're making your mold, your plastic molds. Right. I met a young woman who was making frozen organic food. Suddenly the person who cold packs that becomes very powerful. A stranger controls her item. That's his business. So to me, I'm making a comment on how fierce you must be to succeed in business. Yeah. It ain't easy. And it's never, and I don't look down on it for anybody. And family, to me, it's about being forgiving and loving through everything. And that's what I found inspiring about Robert when he made The Godfather, and that's what I find inspiring about Joy as a human being. We sat with the real Joy and her father right in front of us.
But are you attracted to this idea of creating a business?
Of course, I love people who create. I love people who create something, and they have a thing. I mean, they have a universe that people is supporting people's lives, and they're all working in it together. It's a system. That's what a movie set is. I love systems like that. A movie set to me is a big family. We're all in an endeavor together. A Navy SEAL team is a family. They're doing an endeavor together. I love that. I love that. People relying upon each other for a larger mission.
You see her clearer after you're divorced than you did when you were married. You see her clearer.
Yeah.
After your divorce.
Yeah, and I think that there's he starts to make amends, I think, after they got divorced, because he needs to mature. I mean, he's at the beginning of the film. Tony is her third child,
right?
And as long as he stayed in the safety nest in the basement, he was never gonna see himself. Actually, he sees himself clearer after the divorce. I've never been married, so I've never gone through a divorce, but I cannot imagine how how hard and difficult the sense of failure, of seeing so many plans and so many dreams be shattered. I mean, it's we discussed this during the divorce scene. Actually, there was a very it was a very emotional scene. It's only a shot in the film, but it was very, very strong because I've never gone through that, and I imagine that going through that sense of loss is like somebody who you love very much dies. I guess that it could be compared to losing someone, and all the dreams and the plans and the expectations around.
Yeah. What drew you together?
Exactly. So I think that he gains perspective on his own life. And then decides to.
You don't have to be married for that to happen, I don't think.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I've been through heartbreak, but what I'm saying is like the divorce. There's something that you sign, and there's a commitment that you a marriage. I mean, it's a commitment that you promise things in front of people. So of course there's a social context to it as well. So the implications are larger. So I imagine that the feeling of failure must be even more. Right? We discuss this a lot.
A couple of things I want to do. One, I want to get Isabella here. This is Isabella testing Joy's business instincts. Well, what was your reaction to that scene?
She scared me.
She'd pick up the gun.
Well, Isabella. She scared me.
That's what I'm saying. Isabella would pick up the gun.
Yeah.
So what happens when Joy, this woman who was valedictorian of her class, says had a bit of a struggle. She lives in this home and she's had a failed marriage, and she comes up with the idea of this mop. What happens when she meets Neil, and from his standpoint?
From Neil's standpoint?
Yeah, your standpoint. But does he see her as simply another opportunity, or is there something that she has that he finds, more than simply one more person wanting to sell a product?
There's something in that scene, the way that David shoots it when they're in that sort of white demo lab when she's doing the mop, and the camera sort of pans up, and you see him looking at her, starting to and it sort of feels like, he's constantly observing everything. The guy's, he's a salesman. He's constantly looking for ways to better his company. And I think that is that moment, sort of watching her demonstrate, watching the mop, and you sort of see a bit of a light bulb go off, and then he says, "Can you make 50,000 of these by next week?" And you're like, "Oh, he's already off and running. He's starting to create the matrix by which she can live in."
And she says instantly yes, not knowing.
And then he says, "Okay, I'm going to take you behind the curtain." And then he starts talking to her about other people and other people who have been successful and what they've had to do as he's orchestrating and conducting.
And the first demonstration is not successful.
Correct.
And that's when there's a confrontation. Roll tape. Here it is. How did you prepare for this character?
I've been thinking about it as we've been talking, what it's like to work with David, and I just had this image of, he tells you time to show up, and you just sit there, and there's this place, and he's got a map, and he's got the tools, and he knows the tools that he wanted you to bring, and then you're going to excavate with him.
Right.
And from the minute we started talking about it, I was doing a play in New York. He had this idea for the movie that he was going to do with Jen and Bob, and he wanted me to play this role, and then it begins. And you really do, I feel like, I don't know what you guys think, but I feel like I'm preparing with him.
But do you write with him in mind?
Yes.
You do. You knew each of these characters were who you wanted.
I knew I had never worked yet with a Latino actor, so that was new. I liked Edgar. He had worked with Robert in the movie Hands of Stone about Roberto Duran. But I go to Bradley backstage at Elephant Man, and we talk about what should this guy feel like? What should he look like? And we looked at numerous kinds of people. We want to get a feel for somebody. I like that he and Jennifer are quietly powerful more than the previous movies where they've been very loud. That's different for both of us. It's more mature.
Why do you act now? I mean, you've done everything, won everything. You have all kinds of businesses, or restaurant business and real estate. Why do you do it?
Well, I kind of, I like to do it. It's sort of it clarifies my life when I'm working on something. I'd rather be in New York, but if I go away, then that's what it is. But just clarifies, I have a focus instead of when I'm not doing something, then I'm focused on things, but there's more stuff going on in my life, that there can be, in a way that certain part of it is just distractions. So when as I say, focus on something, it gives me a clarity for
Meaning
that
that
period of time.
it demands a plan and it demands structure.
Yes, and structure. And I need that. I like that.
Do you think you're better today than you were 10 years ago?
I don't know. I mean, some things I'm better at. I suppose. That's a tricky question. In some ways, I am. In others, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm struggling with something right now. I don't have it, and I'm not going to be happy until I have the direction that I'm going in. So, I don't know. I'm just like in limbo with this thing. But
And how will you?
By working through it, and just getting a clarity of the direction that I have to go in this particular project. With the writer and director and so on. So,
Robert, how do you find working with Jennifer when you started with her on Silver Linings?
well, Jennifer, what was great, when she came in and did the scene where she does all the technical.
She took over the scene.
Yeah, exactly. It was terrific. I mean, I read it, but then when she did it so well, and that's hard, just to do it and have the authority. And I saw how terrific she was, so that's and in this movie especially, she had so much to do, and sometimes she'd get annoyed at him because he would jump in with a line and she just worked on it. She wanted to try something. She said, let me just finish this. Sometimes I'd get annoyed too. Just let me just finish what we've worked on, and then you can throw us all lines.
Let's get what we prepared first. And
Yeah.
Try all the innovation we want.
I mean, not that what he's giving is not good. It is good, but it's just we want to at least do this. But what was the question? Jennifer, she's great. Yeah, she's great, and she's just terrific. She has a magic about her.
Magic, an undefinable magic.
Yeah.
How'd you find her?
From day one, it's easy. I just felt like I could turn.
Day one, the first time you acted with her?
Yeah, kind of the first time I talked to her on the phone. I remember talking to her on the phone. She was, had she shot the first Hunger Games before Silver Linings Playbook? Yeah, she had.
Hadn't come out.
Yeah, she had shot it. So I think I talked to her. She was on set, and right away I just thought, oh, this person's so alive and open, free, and out of her head and in her body. And when she showed up that first day on SLP, I mean, do you remember?
Yes.
We were just like, whoa! It was just unbelievable.
And what would you say? How would you define the whoa? What was the whoa?
Instinctual. I mean, I've always said this. I mean, she reminds me of Bob a lot. I think they're very similar actors. Highly intelligent, sees everything, but at the same time can be utterly instinctual.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Joy opens on Christmas Day.
Yes.